Hi, Jesse Peterson. How's it going?
Good. Hi, Farley. Nice to meet you.
Farley, great. Thanks for coming and meeting with me today.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I kind of wanted to get a little bit more of what you're looking for. I think we got the basics down from whenever you talked to the other personnel from my team prior, and I just want to know where your mind's at.
For sure. I guess you could say that they kind of call me in when it's time to tie up the loose ends, and I assume that you're kind of in the same position tying up the loose ends, so maybe they just save the best for last. Is that how that works?
I guess so.
All right, great. So here's the thing, Farley, is we have this same, I assume that you're speaking about the impasse that we're at right now.
Yes.
Okay, great. We have the same article throughout the 200 other locations in the nation, and we've used it, and I think that we've honestly found that the developers enjoy it. It gives us the kind of flexibility to be where we need to be in the market so that we're constantly bringing foot traffic, and it's been something beneficial for them and definitely beneficial for us, and so that's kind of why we roll with it, and it gives us kind of that ability to be consistent throughout all the 200 locations.
Okay. I see that consistency is a huge aspect of business, especially in developing your success, and there are a lot of factors that you can't control, obviously, and
Right.
I guess for me, one of my concerns is identifying what we can control while still giving you the flexibility that you desire. So with that, I did have a few questions for you. Mostly, I was wondering if you ever had any kind of legal disputes with your standard lease agreement, like you said before, you have with your 200 other locations. Have there been anything rise up with that?
We honestly haven't had any issues as far as legalities go, just because typically we're the corner store, so I'm not going to say that the lion gets the lion portion, but in some ways it is that way. As long as we're able to continually bring in the traffic, I think that a lot of times the other satellite stores and things haven't had an issue, and because of the wording of the clause, we've avoided a lot of legality issues.
Okay. Where are you located throughout the nation, or is it throughout the nation? Is it globally?
Right, throughout the nation.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the locations spread out. We don't yet have any locations in Boston, so this will be the first location in Boston. We're hoping it goes well, and then maybe we'll look into some other locations.
Yeah, and we appreciate you reaching out to us and kind of considering us for your business. We have worked with our finance team and with many people in the past, and it seems like it's going to be a prime location, not only short-term but long-term, with strong numbers, which if you would desire, then we could show that to you later on. But that's why we think it's a good deal for both of us in regards to that. And I kind of wanted to know too of what your comfort level was around a long-term agreement.
Right, so I'm really glad that you brought this up, honestly. It was something that I wanted to figure out today as we met with each other. It was brought to my attention that they previously negotiated a 25-year lease, which is kind of surprising to me. I'm not exactly sure who on the personnel team negotiated that specific thing, but that actually is not going to be super acceptable for us just because we typically do more of a 5-year. We found that it's a lot more acceptable to do a 5-year lease, and honestly, if on the odd chance that it just ends up being a bad location, we have it out so that we're not stuck trying to find somebody to assign this location for the next 20 years after we've left if it's not a good location for us. So typically we go with more of a 5-year lease.
Okay. So if I understand this correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you do the 5-term typical lease with all of your 200 stores, or is that just general for a few, or like the majority?
Right. That's definitely the majority. I think there may be a small handful of stores that has had a slightly longer period, especially in the beginning when we were starting out. But definitely now the standard is 5 years.
Okay. And have you, with those select few, like you said from the beginning, that are a little bit more long-term leases, what have you seen in comparison to the short-term leases in terms of foot traffic, economic difficulties, or implications, I should say? Does that make sense?
Right. No, I understand your question. So I guess it's kind of you live and you learn. At the beginning, I think that we found that the leases were too long, and sometimes a few years in, we would realize it just wasn't a good location. The right product, the right people, everything, just the wrong location, was the wrong place. And so then we would need to get out, and then we're stuck in a position where we're having to find somebody to assign that location. I don't presume to be in the business of real estate. I don't want to deal with that. And so it just works a lot better for us. And I think for you as a developer as well, just because if we're not able to make a go of it in 5 years, then you have that flexibility afterwards to find somebody else to occupy the space. And you're not having to be tied down with thinking about who we're going to assign into the location after that period of time.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. I completely agree. And as I'm sure you've already been told or aware, that we've been in business for over 20 years now. And we've dealt with a little bit smaller projects, so this would be our largest project. However, from what we've seen a lot with like the satellite stores and just smaller anchors, that it's been more short term, and they have signed on for longer leases because of the locations that we have them in the surrounding areas, and they seem to be very satisfied with that. So I just thought I'd let you know that. And in terms of the flexibility, of course, no mean to like be a dead horse or state the obvious, but I just want to kind of clarify that the way that things are right now, especially with Article 22, it's not acceptable for either of us. It's not the greatest benefit that we can have for both parties here. And I think that we can make just a few minor adjustments that would be, or would maximize the benefit for both of us. And I just kind of wanted to know like what your thoughts were and what we can brainstorm with it, maybe like what you're most concerned about with the article and how we can address it.
Right, Curly, I think that we don't necessarily have any concerns. I mean, our concern is just for the article not to go forward as it is. Mm-hmm. You're mentioning that it's unacceptable. Why was it unacceptable for you guys? What's your main pain point on this?
Yeah, so we're
kind of dealing with a couple of different beasts. Obviously, the content of the stores, the subletting, the assigning. So, I mean, what is your major pain point here?
Yeah, so like I said, we've been in business for over 20 years, and from what we've seen and with our partners and all around the globe, what we've seen is the basis of the subletting and the signing and the subleasing is the greatest cause for serious legal disputes. And we've seen so many disgruntled companies from that, and that's why kind of what you said earlier, like you live and you learn. We did that at the beginning where we were a lot more flexible with that, and it ended up being to our detriment, and especially to the detriment of those anchor tenants and satellite stores. And the reason that we have that is a protection for both parties. And a lot of times it's viewed as more of a negative connotation, that it restricts flexibility, where from what I've seen in my personal experience and business experience, it actually allows more flexibility if it's more long-term. Does that make sense?
Right, so you're referring to the lease period at the end. That's what you're referring to, is the lease period. You're hoping to have a longer term lease to avoid certain issues.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have a longer term lease to avoid the subletting and all that.
And if you don't mind me asking, I mean, you mentioned that you guys had experienced some legal concerns. And what specifically have you guys encountered as far as legal issues with this?
Mostly, I've seen it with other companies, and like I said, our partners and colleagues. We've only experienced it like a very select few times when we first started out. And mostly it has to do with the competition issue. We can give an example. Say you were in our location and we had other satellite stores, and you wanted to introduce more goods and maybe sublease part of your square footage out to another retailer somewhere else. And the issue of competition arose. and it ended up being in violation of the at least one of the satellite stores' lease agreements, and they ended up losing a lot of business, a lot of foot traffic, and in return, so did the larger anchor. So if you were the larger anchor, you would have lost a lot of business, and the company or business that you subleased to would have been not creditworthy and violated their agreement, and it would end up in a huge fiasco. And that's what we want to avoid, is those headaches, the pain, the financial detriment that would result. And I just want to make sure, did I explain that correctly to you? Did that make sense and answer your question?
Right. And maybe let me say it like this. Curly, have you ever heard the saying, don't let the tail control the dog?
Yeah.
Okay, so definitely in this situation, I mean, as the main content provider of the mall, we kind of represent the dog here. And these little satellite tenants are more kind of like the tail. So sort of this idea that these smaller satellite tenants are going to be controlling the bigger store, the anchor store in the mall that is driving a lot of the foot traffic, driving a lot of the sales in the mall, just seems kind of unrealistic.
I can understand that. Yeah, and that's what we try to avoid with that, is what I'm saying here. The main point is that the subleasing and subletting that's already in the revised agreement that was sent to you, the revised article, sorry, that avoids that scenario where the tail is controlling the dog, from what we've seen in our experience. And from what I understand, I kind of want to transition a little bit, but from what I understand, that your concerns is the flexibility, like over time, you'd want to introduce more goods that are in other stores to improve your consistency and really get the most out of what you can in your business and meet your consumers' needs and wants. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of your concerns or fears with this is that with the article as it is, you wouldn't be allowed to introduce those harder goods.
Right. Well, any kind of variety of products, it kind of, I mean, as the clause was mentioned for you guys, we're basically, our hands are tied, and that's going to be kind of difficult if we're going to introduce maybe even a new product throughout all the chains in the nation. It's going to be kind of difficult for us, and so we need that flexibility big time. Otherwise, it'll just be difficult for us. I mean, is there, obviously, if there's not any room for flexibility on that for you guys, I mean, maybe there isn't a way to come to a deal on this, but we definitely like to be able to have that flexibility. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for us as a part of the chain.
Oh, yeah. And if I were in your shoes, I would think the exact same thing. And I was trying to brainstorm a little bit of how we could help you with that, because we honestly think that you would be a great fit in this position. So I think I found a way around it, and I'm trying to remember if it's the revised clause that we sent you or the original. I can't recall at the moment, but it brings up the question of written consent. Say you wanted to introduce a harder good, you could just provide us a written consent formally, and then I would say it's pretty likely that we would approve it. And that way you get that flexibility. And if for whatever reason that your good isn't approved to be sold in that storefront, and for the reason that it competes with a smaller satellite store or whatever the reason may be, we could have your branded product, like we can connect you with the satellite and have your branded product sold in their stores so you can sell it to them for a large price, and they would only get like a smaller fraction of that income whenever the product is sold. But it would improve your consumer awareness with your brand, and it will give even greater foot traffic. It would improve your circle or sphere of influence, so to speak. And I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that, if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Okay, I think that's time.
Okay, perfect.